What's up, guys? Hello to Footballtalk here. The 2026 NFL offseason is officially here, and before we fully dive into draft content, it's time to release my annual version of a free agency preview where I match all 32 teams with one player about to hit the open market. The way we'll do this here is go down the list from most to least available effective cap space, which takes the projected salaries of the incoming draft class and fill in the minimum roster requirements into account, quickly discuss the rosters and which areas each team is looking to address, and lay out which players specifically make sense for them with an estimate of what a contract could look like. Thanks to overthecap.com at this point for providing these numbers, which are from Friday the 20th. There may be some slight adjustments still coming, but right now the projected overall cap space sits at a whopping $303.5 million as the value of these TV deals and their revenue share continues to rise. Just quickly before we do that, here are a few names I didn't include because I just don't expect the current teams to allow them to hit the open market, either still striking a long-term deal or applying the franchise tag to them. Daniel Jones, Kenneth Walker, George Pickens, Kyle Pitts, Tyler Linderbaum, Joey Bosa, Demario Davis, and Cam Curl. Plus, if Travis Kelce decides to return for one more year, it'll of course be with the Chiefs. Alright, the usual, please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content and want to follow along for the offseason, but let's get into it now. And the team that is number one in available cap space, actually the only one with over $100 million total, is the Tennessee Titans, who assembled an entirely new coaching staff under Robert Saleh with an oddly large number of bald men. Just a funny coincidence going through it. From a player perspective, even with Darius Sneed is back healthy, they absolutely need to address that second corner spot and probably add some proven edge rusher, with a couple of veterans likely gone, when they already only were average in pressure rates thanks to a monster season from Jeffrey Simmons. But the primary focus to me has to be surrounding last year's first overall pick Cam Ward with better talent. The offensive line unfortunately didn't come together the way we were hoping for. How the quarterback operates, holding onto the ball too long, and drifting in the pocket at times compounded these issues that they hadn't heavy dropback scripts that they were forced into. But part of that was not having a reliable number one receiver to just pull the trigger on time. That's where former Packer Romeo Doubs comes into play. Not the type of physical freak alpha the Titans fans may be hoping for, such as if they reunited with A.J. Brown, but this guy can line up on the backside of the formation and consistently make himself available to the quarterback on slants, digs, curl routes. He basically has a 50% contested catch rate for his career, since Ward isn't always pinpoint accurate, and he really understands how to uncover and help out his quarterback in the second phase of the play. After relying on rookies for the most part last year, I think they could lock him up for 4 years, $50 to $55 million. Down from $92 to $78.5 million in effective cap space, pretty surprisingly for an 11-win team, the Los Angeles Chargers, a team I'm very interested in how they'll approach this offseason. They already made a big move for Mike McDaniel as a very different offensive play caller compared to Greg Roman, and I'm pretty interested in what that marriage with Justin Herbert looks like, but from a personnel perspective, I don't really know what to expect. Is this the time we finally see Chargers GM Joe Ortiz really take those funds they've amassed and spend up in free agency? They've been highly conservative in the first 2 years of this regime, when we thought they were set up to make some big moves, but took a measured approach until now. There are a couple of glaring areas of weakness, however. I don't see them letting Khalil Mack and Odafe Owe out of the building, with the latter having been one of the more effective edge rushers in the league once they acquired him via the trade deadline from Baltimore. So let's assume they secure him long term. The two starting offensive tackles are back healthy, but even before losing them, that interior offensive line was just a black hole. The lifetime Browns guard Joel Bitonio could make a lot of sense here. He's entering the twilight of his career, about to go into his age 35 season, but he has a lot of experience in this more outside zone-centric run game under Kevin Stefanski, which McDaniel also has his roots in. He's a sturdy presence in pass protection, who has seen all these different games and blitzes that really give the previous iteration of this group such trouble, and he's played over 1,000 snaps in 9 straight seasons now. I'd have no problem handing him $26 to $28 million for the next 2. Which brings us to the Las Vegas Raiders, one of 2 AFC West teams here back-to-back, where it was pretty clear to me that had to address the offensive line with the state they were in last season. If they find a trade partner that is willing to pay up for Max Crosby is a big storyline to follow. They'd be rolling out a pair of late day free picks at linebacker from the past 2 drafts, with locked around the 150 and 0 defensive snaps respectively, even if there's not a whole lot of room downwards based on how the unit performed last season. But you can't draft Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza first overall, seeing the beating he took in the national championship, and roll out this group yet again. Pete Carroll's son not taking on another unit, he seems to have zero business coaching Matt help, but none of the young guys they were hopeful for took the next step last season. Former Eagle and Steeler Isaac Samalo jumped out to me here. 10 years of experience, largely as a starter, he's only missed 7 total games over the past 4, consistently graded out well as a thick road grading guard. What Ashton Jeanty was working with, constantly being hit in the backfield, and the amount of missed assignments was an absolute joke. Samalo gives you some more displacement at the point of attack, ran a lot of zone in Philly especially, which matches well with what Clint Kubiak wants to do. 10 to 12 million annually on like a 3-year deal sounds about right. Next up, the Washington Commanders. It was certainly a letdown season for Washington, where a lot of my worries about them being the oldest roster in the league manifested themselves, but of course Jaden Daniels being in and out of the lineup helped the cause, so to speak. Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, Roy Wagner, and Dietrich Weiss are probably all gone. Maybe they bring back Deebo Samuel, but there are also a couple of other candidates that might get waived. Yet, even though the transition from Cliff Kingsbury to David Blau will be interesting in terms of what the bones of this offense look like, they have to target this defense, which has lived off turnovers for the small stretches they've at least been solid. I'll mention with Seattle here in a couple of minutes that they probably won't be able to bring back off the defensive backs with expiring contracts, and Rick Woolen is just enough of a headache that I could see them allowing him to walk out of the building. Considering how much more man coverage they leaned into when he was available and what they asked of him, I thought Trey Amos had a really promising rookie season, but Marshall Lattimore simply isn't the same anymore, with some of the injuries he's battled and not being able to trust his fading athleticism. I like the idea of Reek as that long press build type of corner, or someone they can lock onto boundary receivers at times, while Mike Sainer still can focus on the slots. Washington still near the top of the league in cover 3, which Quinn has his roots in. Something like a 3+1 deal, meaning a club option attached to it, at close to $10 million annually would make sense. Bringing us to the New York Jets, and the Jets are a mess. What else is new? The fact that they brought back Aaron Glenn for his second season as head coach, despite firing basically his entire staff that he just put together a year ago, considering they continuously got worse on defense and altogether, speaks more to how cheap owner Woody Johnson is, not wanting to pay for someone who doesn't work, similar to why he's probably on the forefront of not wanting the team report cards out there from the NFLPA. But let's not get too far off topic. This is quite the construction side personnel-wise. Now, after trading away Sauce Gardner and Quentin Williams, they're pretty loaded with draft picks over the next 2 years, and I love the offensive tackle duo, which is hard to find generally. Instead of just swapping out previous starters with expiring contracts, I decided to target probably the worst position group, and the one the head coach used to play, outside corner. Jalen Watson won Super Bowls in each of his first 2 seasons in Kansas City, and has improved every year as a former 7th round pick. He's played in a man-heavy, hands-on defense early on his bags, but has plenty of experience as those guys transition to more off-zone stuff as well. Pro Football Focus isn't the Bible by any means, but the only Jets corner with a grade above 62 last season was Brandon Stevens, who has allowed 13 touchdowns compared to 0 interceptions over the past 2 seasons, and was the clear weak spot in Baltimore previously. This guy immediately raises the base level and wants to get his first bag as a pro, probably something like 4 years, $50 million. Bringing us to the Seattle Seahawks with $59 million effective cap space available to them, which almost seems unfair for the reigning champs to be up here, with one capping off a great postseason by winning Super Bowl MVP, and the other one providing spark plays into one of the biggest matchups after acquiring him via trades. I'd be pretty shocked if Seattle didn't find a way to bring back Kenneth Walker and Rashid Shaheed, probably on long-term deals. Of course, you don't want to lose any pieces from such a dominant defense, but with basically 3 starters in the secondary, Rick Woolen, who we already discussed, Josh Jobe, and Kobe Bryant, all bound to hit the open market, you probably won't be able to bring them all back. When I think about a safety who can cloud over the top, but really drive down on routes in front of him in quarters principles, Jaquan Brisker sticks out like a sore thumb. I wonder if the Bears actually allow him to leave the building as a homegrown player, who probably just had his best showing of his career in the divisional round, but they already have 7 players with cap hits of $90 million or more on the books, and will have to work out some other deals here soon. Brisker would be a great fit for the energy that the Hawks defense play with. He could allow them to be more versatile maybe with Nickel and Warriors deployment in year 2, and he may be a couple of $1 million less per year than Kobe Bryant, largely based on the discrepancy in ball production, around $10 million per. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals, quite a steep drop down to $46.5 million effective cap space. Wide receiver? Let's get the ball in half a second and protect Joe Burrow that way. Obviously not. If they allow veteran Dalton Risner to walk, guard is a massive priority to address, while a couple of second-year guys may be competing for that other spot. But I had to go defense here, with how the unit has struggled each of the past 2 seasons, both under Lou Anarumo and Al Golden, now heading into year 2 as the man in charge. It appears that they'll see what they have on the edge with first rounders from the last couple of years, as well as a pair of off-ball linebackers from this most recent class. but man, they are desperate for competent safety play. I've had Ohio State's Caleb Downs penciled in for them at pick number 10 in the draft for a while now, but I have a tough time envisioning a path for that not being the call if he's still available at that point. Reed Blankenship, however, once was kind of on the other end of the spectrum, where I talked about him being one of my personal favorites before he ultimately went undrafted, but as his usage continued to increase in Philly, he progressively got better, and I just look at him as a rock-solid starter who they can plug in right away, regardless of who they end up pairing him with. I'd say he slightly dipped last season, but generally has been a very good tackler and processor to attack what's in front of him, limiting the potential for explosive plays that has killed Cincy in the past. I see him ultimately being a value signing for 3 years, around 25 to 30 million. Sticking in the AFC North with the Pittsburgh Steelers, $39.5 million available to them, another defense where many of the key Hawks are in the twilight of their careers, and they should definitely target that second outside corner spot in some way, but when they've had the full defensive front healthy, they've been able to make opponents pretty one-dimensional, and I've consistently been impressed with what Patrick Graham has done in terms of changing up looks in the back end to mitigate some personnel deficiencies as a play caller. The direction of this offense with Mike McCarthy hiring Brian Angelicchio, is how to pronounce it I believe, to be his OC, after largely being a long-time tight ends coach, is much more of an unknown to me. It's starting to really feel like they will bring back Aaron Rodgers for his age 42 season, who by nature caps the ceiling of the pass game with how quickly he wants to get rid of the ball underneath. He has DK Metcalf as that boundary receiver he can throw go balls up to and the occasional slant, but they need that over-the-middle possession-style guy, which is where John Jennings comes into play. He only averaged a little over 500 yards in his 5 seasons as a 49er, but consistently delivered when needed to take on more of an extensive role. Walks his ass off, demon on third downs, catches just about everything and fights for extra yards. Outside of DK, Roman Wilson has yet to prove he can be an asset, and Ben Skowronek has been more of a quasi-fullback than an actual receiver in his career, and that's about it what they have on the roster. Pittsburgh is more equipped to pay him close to $20 million annually, and you can just easily envision this dude in the AFC North. Next up, the Los Angeles Rams, $2 million down at $37.5 million effective cap space. As I outlined in the beginning, I'd be pretty shocked if the Rams didn't prioritize bringing back Cam Curl this offseason, with how well the defense functioned when they were able to stick in these free safety packages. Reigning MVP Matt Stafford will require a raise in what might be his final season. They obviously need to address that right tackle spot in some way, following the retirement of Rob Havenstein, but I do want to focus on the secondary here, and in particular the cornerback position, which became the biggest area of concern once again down the stretch this past season. Greg Newsome II was involved in the rare trade of players at the same position between the Browns and the Jaguars sending over Tyson Campbell, which may not have made sense to the casual fan necessarily, but both fit the systems that coaching staffs wanted to run a little bit better, as the former joined a very zone-heavy unit. Well, the Rams did call up some two-man, thanks to how running the most dime personnel by a long shot last season sets the table for it, but otherwise heavily relied upon zone coverage. If they do bring back Curl in order to stick with that formula, Darius Williams is still the lone viable outside corner on the contract, with Cody Durant becoming a free agent, and Akel Witherspoon showing his true colors when they really needed him. Newsome's coverage numbers weren't great on paper, and he only had 1 pick as a Jaguar, but he's been a solid starter inside and out, isn't even quite 26 years old, and probably commands no more than $10 million annually on a 3 to 4 year basis. Again, sticking in division with the NFC West and the San Francisco 49ers at about the same number, $37 million, a team that truly got the ass-to-belt treatment by the division rivals and eventual Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks in 2 of the final 3 games. But you have to feel good about the fact that they had a chance to earn that number 1 overall seed in the NFC in Week 18, despite numerous injuries on both sides of the ball that will cripple most other franchises, and even after losing Robert Saleh to Tennessee, Raheem Morris has been an excellent defensive coordinator, which he's probably more made for. They may want to find more of that ex-receiver Brandon Ayuk was for them previously, after officially splitting up, and have a real solution at left guard, but otherwise are pretty set on offense. Getting Fred Warner and Nick Bosa back healthy obviously makes a huge difference defensively, but they need some more juice from the rest of the pass rush group. John Franklin Myers has been one of the most productive guys on the interior, with this past season being his first in 6 years, where he barely didn't crack 50 pressures total. He can play the big D end role on early downs if needed, but his deployment has always been more pass-centric, where he can kick inside and be a problem for guards, or run a variety of stunts and twists. I believe he'd make those packages feel more dynamic, while Bosa can be isolated on the other side of those load fronts, and it wouldn't necessarily stunt the development of the 2 rookie D tackles from last year. Morris was also his DC 1 year with the Rams, and you're probably looking at a couple of years at just under $10 million. Let's get to the team that got sort of embarrassed in the Super Bowl after putting together an improbable run to the game's biggest stage, the New England Patriots, with $36.5 million available to them. I think the Pats are one of the more intriguing teams to follow these next couple of months, because they worked out so many one-year deals last offseason under Mike Vrabel to quickly turn them into a competitive group, and now we'll see who they choose to prioritize bringing back, how patient are they with understanding there was a down year for the usual giants of the AFC, or do they maybe make that one more extra move to really push them over the top, like trading for Max Crosby. Even then, I believe re-signing Caleb Jason could be a sensible idea for both parties, at least for one more year. Only his age 27 season to really get the bag next off season if he can continue on this trajectory, as he largely resurrected his career with a coaching staff that got the best out of him. Up front is where they got the asses handed to them on offense, and I went Rasheed Walker here, which, hear me out, doesn't mean I'm giving up on Will Campbell by any means. I thought 4 was rich for him, but viewed him as a long-term plus starting guard. It's not just the lack of length, but how he operates with all these vertical sets and giving rushers a runway into contact, where then he doesn't have the core strength to anchor against power. I think by moving him and collegiate center Jared Wilson over one spot, bringing Walker over from Green Bay as a free quality starter, only just turned 26 years old, you actually improve at 3 spots, even if you're probably handing him close to $100 million over the next 4 years. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts with $34 million effective cap space. Other than Daniel Jones being a likely franchise tag candidate, coming off the torn Achilles, and Alec Pierce's demands probably being too rich in combination with that, 2 names stand out above the rest: right tackle Braden Smith and safety Nick Cross. They have a couple of mid-round projects to potentially fill in at the former, but Cross is someone I believe they'll prioritize in a pretty cheap safety market. The position I chose to address here is linebacker, with former Eagle Nakobe Dean. This was one of my favorite players in the entire 2022 draft, and after some injuries delayed the start in the pros, he turned himself into one of the top Mike backers in the league, despite some athletic limitations. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL along Philly's path to the Super Bowl, but was excellent again once he returned for the latter half of last season. Only they had hit the lotto with rookie Jahar Campbell alongside Zach Bond. That makes him available here to be a thumper for these Colts, who provide stability for that unit, which they are striving for. His play recognition for dealing with a Liam Cohen offense, and what he provides as a physical blitzer against the 2 other offenses in the division, considering their protection struggles. For a Lou and Aruma coach defense that values football IQ from that spot, this is a fit I already really liked at this most recent trade deadline. Arizona Cardinals are next here at $27.5 million effective cap space. The whole Kyler Murray situation is totally unclear still at this point, and they really need to find the right tackle for whoever ends up playing quarterback in Arizona, but I'm looking at how they can provide some stability to a defense that did a lot of fun things, but ultimately finished near the bottom of the league every year under Jonathan Gannon, in particular up front. Khalil Mack brings a veteran presence to an edge room, where they've really struggled to get development from the homegrown talent. Coming over from the Chargers, Saving Collins is on the second of as many years that Arizona gave to him after his rookie deal ran out, where they transitioned him to a full-time edge role. They did hand Josh Sweat $19 million annually in last year's free agency, coming off that big Super Bowl performance, and he repaid them with a career-best 12 sacks. So maybe GM Monty Ossenford sees this as the correct path for them, while Darius Robinson is allowed to develop as an alignment versatile rotational piece, and the flashes Walter Nolan showed as a rookie are something they are hopeful they can rely upon on a larger sample size. Mack turns 35 years old possibly on the very day this is released, but he can still condense the pocket and help everyone learn how to set a firm edge like him, without stunning the growth of the young guys they're hopeful for around him. 1 year for around $80 million would be my projection. A team Mack has plenty of experience against the Denver Broncos inside that AFC West, $25 million available to them. It must have been a frustrating exit to the playoffs at home in that snowstorm that unfolded in the AFC Championship game against the Patriots, after Bo Nix had shockingly fractured his ankle, and since then there have been some questionable comments about it by Sean Payton. The Broncos have a couple of pending free agents on defense, but must love the fact that nobody decided to have Vance Joseph as their head coach. Offensively, they could go the route of a veteran or rookie to pair with RJ Harvey in the backfield, but I went tight end here, where there could be a lot more intriguing options available. Longtime Eagle Dallas Goedert may not quite be categorized as that joker tight end Peyton was hoping for that he had found in Evan Ingram last offseason, but he can operate as more of a traditional Y. For when they go to these 12 personnel looks, he's made a lot of money as the guy slicing across the formation and becoming a load to bring down for defenders when the ball flipped out to him in the flats. He's an excellent blocker on the screen game and to capture the edge for a coach that likes to get his wide receivers involved on jet sweeps, end arounds and stuff like that, as much as anyone pretty much. Goddard already turned 31 this offseason, but can still boost the run game as an inline option and just reached the end zone a career high 11 times. Going through his profile, he's not only missed as many chunks of time with injury as the discussions around him usually sound like, and you're probably able to sign him for like a 2+1 deal around $20 million. Next up, the Atlanta Falcons at $24 million effective cap space. I mentioned Kyle Pitts as one of the names I expect to be back in Atlanta, most likely in the franchise tag, so they can see if last year was more of an indication of what's to come from the former 4th overall pick, and they've said publicly that it'll be tough to retain Tyler Algier, who they expect to command starter money at running back. Yet with the starting right tackle Caleb McGarry healthy, the main question about this offense is if Michael Penix Jr. is ready to go and take the next step this season. Defensively, as Jeff Ulbrich continues to embrace more of that hybrid front structures, but 220-pound former safety convert Diam Diablo is the only returning off-ball linebacker with any playing time of note. That's a position they have to look into if they allow Caden Ellis to leave the building. You can make up that size efficiency on the second level by bringing in a guy who's played around 260 pounds at times in Leo Chanel coming over from Kansas City, who is very comfortable at taking on offensive linemen and create havoc as a blitzer. We've seen their defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo regularly mug him up or bring him down to the end of the line of scrimmage to change up blocking angles and just throw different looks at the opposing offense. He could be a fun piece to add to the puzzle, especially in combination with last year's first-round pick Jalen Walker's ability to move around in passing downs. He's probably in the $5 to $6 million range annually. Their division rivals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are next year with $18 million available to them. Even though they did beat the Panthers in Week 18, by virtue of a three-way tie atop the NFC South, they missed out on the playoffs, which didn't feel wrong necessarily, considering that was one of the only 2 wins since the Week 9 bye. The contracts for lifetime Bucks, Mike Evans and Lavonte David are expiring. They still need the edge rusher to complement what they have on the inside, especially if they also allow Hassan Reddick to walk. But with Zach Robinson taking over an offense that kind of became stale last season, I'm more concerned about what changes Todd Bowles may make to this defense. David has shown signs of his age understandably, and right now Savasi Dennis is the only off-ball linebacker on the books. That's frightening. Stealing in division from Atlanta, as I just brought up, with Caden Ellis, a coincidence by the way that these two ended up back-to-back, since I wrote this up before sorting up my cap space. The Bucks have to be begging that Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles somehow makes it to them at pick 15 in the draft. But even then, this wouldn't be a bad fit if they really want to lean into using this linebacker as part of the pressure packages. For a unit on the Bulls that already revolves so much around these fire zones, they have to be less predictable when they send these extra bodies, mix up what they do coverage-wise, merit to it, but 73 pressures over the past 2 seasons for Ellis leads everyone at the position. And he's a generally very disciplined player, now heading into his age 31 season, probably doesn't command more than $10 million annually on a multi-year deal. Switching conferences now with the Baltimore Ravens, $13.5 million effective cap space for them. First and foremost, the Ravens obviously need to extend and spread out Lamar Jackson's cap hit this offseason, which currently would be a massive $74.5 million in 2026. The next step would be to bring back Tyler Linderbaum as the guy snapping the ball to Lamar every play. Assuming they don't bring back DeAndre Hopkins, adding one more receiver to the mix could really complete that group, but I'm focused on a defense that was tied for the 3rd fewest sacks in the league and was also near the bottom of the list in pressure rate. Boye Mafe is someone who could help out at a fairly modest price. Calvin Noy and Draymond Jones both are unrestricted free agents, where they'll probably bring back one as the bigger body on the edge, but clearly they wanted to find more of a bendy speed guy across from that with Mike Green. The difference with Mafe compared to last year's second rounder is that it gives him more consistency when he does have to hold his ground in run defense, and even if he only recorded 2 sacks last season, he's more refined at marrying his hand combats and hips, as well as converting speed to power, and he's coming over from Seattle, where he had great success rushing with 4, something Baltimore couldn't rely upon at all last season. You're probably looking at something like 4 years for $50 million. Bringing us to the Philadelphia Eagles, almost the same number at $13 million available. We're definitely in a state of flux after stalwart offensive line coach Steph Stoutland stepped down due to some disagreements about his role in designing the run game, the whole A.J. Brown saga that they've dragged along for 2 years now, and the continued noise around Jalen Hurts holding back the offense while being sort of an untouchable as a topic. Initially I was thinking they were a spot for a Zion Johnson reclamation project, as a former first-round pick at guard for the Chargers if Stoutland was still there, and outside of a couple of guys in rookie deals, the entire edge room is about to hit the open market. Re-signing Jalen Phillips before that happens I expect to be a priority. The entire tight end room from last year is basically gone. Cameron Latu is the only name currently under contract. Former Raven Isaiah Likely would be a fun replacement for Dallas Goedert, or maybe more importantly, these other receiving guys they've had behind him. maybe they still want to add more of an inline option when you put those guys on the field together, but this team ran nearly 60% 11 personnel, and the tush push is a big reason that number wasn't even higher, as that's clearly the preferred way Nick Sirianni wants to base plays out of, depending on how much influence first-year offensive coordinator Sean Mannion potentially has. A lot of times they detach their tight end in those to spread out defenses and give Saquon room to run. Latka is at his best as a blocker in the screen game, and can take these design touches himself, such as on shovel passes they've used at times, along with all the stuff he does slicing across the formation and racking up yards after the catch. Bringing us to the Carolina Panthers with $7.5 million available, if they use the 50 option or find some kind of mid-level extension with quarterback Bryce Young, will determine how much flexibility they'll have cap-wise, but they clearly found the number one receiver and offensive rookie of the year Tetro McMillan, and proved that they have the infrastructure to deal with some shuffling around on the O-line if they're dealing with injuries, where Ikem Ekwuonu's return from the patella tendon will be another challenge. I'd guess they make sure to have one of the starting centers back, either Austin Corbett or more likely Caden Mays. You have to address the defense here, in particular the front seven, where Gio Evero has continued to try getting by with rookies and mid to lower tier free agents final last offseason. This group was tied for the third fewest sacks in the league, and the 21.4% overall pressure rate last season was the lowest altogether. Trey Hendrickson is the biggest name available right now. He'll turn 32 at the end of the year, and is coming off multiple injuries that limited him on another one-year deal, but this guy had 17.5 sacks each of the prior two campaigns, and did so in a bad defense in Cincinnati. He can teach the ropes to Nick Scorton, who really impressed me with his ability to set the edge primarily, and someone in Princely Umanmielen, who is trying to hone in a pretty diverse toolbox as a pass rusher, and all Hendrickson ever really wanted was a multi-year commitment with real guarantees, something like 3 for $75 million. And this is where we move into the red numbers, currently over the cap at the Green Bay Packers by around $3.5 million effective cap space. There are two starters for the Packers that they need to decide if they're allowed to hit the open market: left tackle Rasheed Walker and former first round pick Quay Walker at linebacker. That should be pretty clear on the former. Is he too expensive? And how do they feel about the 2024 first rounder Jordan Morgan moving out there, after he's mostly filled in at guard? Quay is a little more complicated based on some of the brain-dead moments he's had that have actively hurt his team, and the up-and-down nature of his play, especially in coverage. I believe they at least allowed both to test the value, and they can't really afford to hand Romeo Doubs the contract heel command with the draft picks they've used on receivers. Instead, we'll look at the flip side of their position of corners and former Buck Jamel Dean. We'll have to see what the Jonathan Gannon coordinated defense looks like between the more too-high shell, rather conservative approach in his Philly days and what Nick Rallis did with these exotic pressures and coverage combinations in Arizona as his DC. I believe seeing what having someone like Will Johnson as a long true boundary corner does for your defense, and Keyshawn Nixon is more of your designated number 2 fields out option, could make him quite attractive. He's never finished the season with a PFF grade below 72.5, had a missed tackle rate of over 9%, and yet with a couple of voided years, this would be his third NFL contract, probably in the $12 to $14 million annual range. Moving on to the team, where the Packers' former defensive coordinator went, the Miami Dolphins, at minus $4 million effective cap space, who, as I said earlier in the week on social media, could be real bad this season. They just cut ties with Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb, which opens up a combined $41 million, even with the dead cap hits they're taken, based on my understanding, but you're still looking at a hit of over $56 million for quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, unless they somehow find a trade partner willing to take on part of his salary, potentially where Miami would have to attach a draft pick themselves. Along with moving on from the two guys I started with, they have no corners or tight ends they can really rely upon anyway on the roster currently, so plenty of areas they should be trying to address with lower tier veterans and rookies most likely. I did want to discuss the potential of reuniting with new head coach Jeff Hafley and Malik Willis as a long-term option quarterback, and it will be a hot commodity on this market that without Daniel Jones consists of veterans way beyond their prime and larger career backups, but even if Mike LaFleur in Arizona can call up his brother for some good inside info, the one guy who has seen what Willis is capable of is his former Green Bay DC. With all the things they probably asked of the backup on scout team, everyone should understand that this is a lengthy rebuild, but I can see Hafley tying himself at the hip to a quarterback of this talent level with the growth he's already shown in limited capacity, who will only turn 27 this offseason, potentially in a more backloaded deal around $20 to $25 million annually, in order to offset some of the contractual implications of Tua's contract. Next up, the New York Giants at negative $5 million. You don't want to think too much about what a team might do in the draft, because larger teams should try to fill needs to some capacity before they're ready to be able to take the best players available. but I can't help at least thinking about the options at 5th overall, either wide receiver or the right side of the offensive line where my head is going. That of course influences what they'd be willing to pay for Wan'Dale Robinson or Jermaine Lemieux at right tackle. So I'm going defense here because that's where they clearly need help. You love all those first round picks along the defensive front on paper, hoping new DC Denard Wilson can bring it all together, but they just couldn't really trust anyone to cover on the back end. Nashawn Wright broke out in Chicago in his 5th year as a pro on team number 3 when he finally got the chance to be a full-time starter, and he won't turn 28 until about a month into his current campaign. Paulson Adebo as the big-ticket free agent showed some signs late in the year after missing some time, but Cordell Flott's rookie deal is running out after being a fixture in the lineup, and Deontay Banks simply has been abysmal after a somewhat promising rookie year. Wright showcased his incredible ball skills and ability to make plays down the field last season, but I'm wondering with his length if Wilson's looking to him as a potential boundary corner who can disrupt receivers at the line in the mold of a Marlon Humphrey who we worked with in Baltimore. You're probably looking at like $15 to $16 million annually based on last year's ball production, which I don't think the Bears are willing to pay. And we'll actually get to Chicago here in a second, but first let's talk about the Cleveland Browns, negative $9 million effective cap space. It's the final year of really being dragged down by Deshaun Watson's infamous contract, but it's going to hit like a motherfucker. Nearly $81 million as of right now. The defense is pretty much ready to go personnel-wise, even though Jim Schwartz is out, especially if JOK is back next to Defensive Rookie of the Year Carson Schwarzenegger at linebacker. Unless Jerry Jeudy has his head on straight and there's some better chemistry with whoever ends up on the center, which I kind of do feel like they may ride out a season with Shedeur Sanders before being really invested into next year's draft class. They could add one more receiver to the mix, where I'm looking at a pretty deep crop coming from the college ranks. Lots of change happening to this offensive line. Literally all 5 primary starters from last season, plus a top backup Tevin Jenkins, are about to hit the open market. Now, DeJuan Jones went down week 3 with a torn LCL and hamstring avulsion. He should be locked into one of the tackle spots, where it gives him flexibility if you prefer the right side for him. David Edwards has started 77 of 103 career games, having been a quality contributor when the Rams were still pretty wide zone centric, and then in a more downhill oriented rushing attack for Buffalo. So new head coach and play caller Todd Monken can be quite varied in his approach, with a proven veteran on the interior who will only turn 29 this offseason. A 4-year deal around $80 million with some cap flexibility could make some sense. Bringing us to those aforementioned Chicago Bears with negative $9.5 million effective cap space, I want to call for a Max Crosby trade to boost the pass rush that lacked any secondary guy they could rely upon, but I did like what Austin Booker showed when he returned from injury, and they may have to replace up to 3 starters in defensive backfields. So I will actually go offense here and reinforce the biggest strength for this team, the run game. For as much improvement as DeAndre Swift showed last season in terms of his down-to-down consistency, I still don't love the way he finishes runs, especially comparing him to the sledgehammer that was a rookie Kyle Monangai, and he doesn't offer a whole lot as individual creative yardage. They could move on from him for $1.3 million in dead cap, or maybe even trade him for some day free pick, which would open up space for Travis Etienne. The Jaguars appear as if they may be ready to put more onto their young backs, and former Jacksonville OC Press Taylor gets to reunite with his guy in Chicago. Etienne offers some big playability to take advantage of all the misdirection Ben Johnson creates, to break a big run once or twice per game, and complement the rugged South Monangai, more closely approximating that Sonic and Knuckles dynamic he had in Detroit. I definitely allowed the connection of Taylor to lead me here, even if Johnson will continue to call plays of course, but looking at the contract Swift is on currently, I'd rather have Etienne at like 3 years, $24 million. Next up, the Houston Texans, minus $10.5 million. As I kind of brought up with the Packers, left tackle Rasheed Walker will be a hot commodity in the open market, as the one guy at the position who could pretty easily acquire an annual salary north of $20 million, which probably takes Houston out of the running. They've got a couple of guys on the interior D-line slated to become free agents, but I'm not messing around with this dominant unit, as long as they're able to bring back Sheldon Rankins or Danico Autry. I really like this draft class of tackles, especially thinking about the names that might be available in the mid-20s. So instead, I thought there was a spot to bring in a true difference maker at running back in Breece Hall. Despite missing 10 games as a rookie, he racked up over 5,000 yards and 27 touchdowns from scrimmage with the freaking Jets. Times have been very frustrating overall there, but when he's been given a lane or had space as a receiver, his talent has been apparent to everyone. I know Woody Marks had a solid second half to his first season as a pro, but he constantly got banged up and should be part of a split backfield anyway, which also protects Breece to some degree. Nick Chubb was just on a 1-year deal, Dario Gumbuala's contract is running out as a primary third down back, and Joe Mixon may be done after not playing at all last season. Hall is someone who can legitimately go 60 to 70 yards if someone doesn't shuffle over on a counter, doesn't protect the sideline on a toss play, or if his screen is set up well for him. He's the top back on the market, but may still be in the low teens annually. And we've seen in the playoffs that they need to be able to rely on the run game to a larger degree. Bringing us to the Detroit Lions at minus $14.5 million. After a disappointing exit in the divisional round as the NFC's number 1 seed in the 2024 season, the Lions managed to just finish last season with a winning record, but that was only good for last in the North as they regressed on both sides of the ball, just like I predicted based on losing both coordinators. Now, injuries were once again a major factor in the defense struggling, as Kevin Shepard otherwise showed some promising signs as a play caller, with that complementary, more power-built secondary edge rusher still missing. Yet Dan Campbell took over those duties for the offense midway through the year, before moving on from John Morton in favor of Drew Petzing this offseason. The loss of Ben Johnson was clearly felt, but on the personnel side, the offensive line with a completely overhauled interior wasn't the same at all either. They have a pair of promising young guards, but need a steady veteran presence at the pivot. Insert Connor McGovern. Over the last 4 years between the Cowboys and Bills, he started all 64 games he's been available for and continuously improved his PFF grade. Still only 28 years old, he brings the combination of age, size, physicality, football IQ, and familiarity with a more man/gap-heavy run scheme in Buffalo, which fits where we already saw some transition towards, and the hiring of Petzing further indicates that. And yet, I don't think he's a big name that'll command top dollar necessarily, probably in the 15 to 16 million annual range on a 3 or 4 year basis. Next up are the Jacksonville Jaguars, with $15.5 million in the negative. If you're wondering why the Jags are down here in terms of available cash, Trevor Lawrence and a trio of defensive linemen in Josh Hines-Allen, Rick Armstead, and Trevor Walker on his 50-year option combined for a nearly $72 million cap hit alone, and there isn't a ton of flexibility either. Having said that, I thought they were as dangerous as just about any team in the AFC coming into these past playoffs, where the lack of experience did show to some degree, and they're bringing back pretty much all key contributors. In this scenario, I have Jacksonville allowing Devin Lloyd and Travis Etienne to walk in free agency based on those financial implications, as well as in part because of wanting to feature the duo of rookie backs from last year in case of the latter. Rico Dowdle is someone who can provide pretty steady production from the running back spot, but based on his output slowing down to end last season in Carolina, as he split touches more evenly with Drew Hubbard, this may be a route that makes more sense for them. Dowdle doesn't quite have the explosiveness or long speed of an ETN, but his rushing style may lend itself more towards what Liam Cohen wants to do with the downhill run scheme and make those touches where they get Bishop 2 out to the corner more meaningful as a change-up. Most importantly, I'd guess he comes at a cheaper price tag at like 2 years, $12 to $14 million. Next are the New Orleans Saints at minus $60 million effective cap space, which is a lot better than where they've been for the most part these last couple of years. Typically at the very bottom of the list. I feel vastly different about the Saints heading into this offseason compared to last. My main concern with them was the age of key contributors along this roster: Alvin Kamara, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, now obviously even a year older, and the two defenders actually have expiring contracts. But when you found yourself a guy who you believe in as your franchise quarterback on the rookie timeline, and you get quality contributions from a recently drafted players, that shifts the perspective. Now, cornerback Alontae Taylor is one of those homegrown players you're going to have to pay up for if you want to retain him, and at least your depth on both sides needs to be restocked. But this shockingly was a top 2 defense in both success rate and EP per play from week 10 onwards. You have to love the young O-line you've been able to put together, but now you need to add more weaponry around your second signal caller. Christian Kirk is a name that may not excite a ton of people as a player that'll be on his 3rd contract and was traded inside the AFC South for a 7th round pick last year. But after coming back from a hamstring strain, he exploded for nearly 150 yards in the wildcard round, and then scored the only Texans touchdown at Foxborough. For as worrisome as his concussion history is, you have that vertical threat in Chris Olave. There was great chemistry between Tyler Shuck and his big-bodied move tight end Juwan Johnson, and now Kirk functions as the zone leader and run-after-catch guy to raise the flow of the receiving corps, and you're probably getting him for a year at like $6 million. Bringing us to the Buffalo Bills at minus $16.5 million. As I mentioned in the intro, I do expect this partnership with Joey Bosa to continue, after he had kind of a renaissance in Buffalo, but it did give him just enough snaps off to keep him healthy for a full year finally again, and it resulted in a productive season as a pass rusher. Safety, off-ball linebacker, and nose tackle are all positions you need to address in some way to upgrade a struggling run defense, which I made an individual video on that topic. While there may be some schematic shifts, especially in terms of front structures and the new DC Jam Leonard, I will take the low-hanging fruit, however, considering how much needed to fall in the offense for just a couple of skill position players and go wide receiver here in Alec Pierce. General Manager and also President of Football Operations Brandon Beane went out of his way to rant on a podcast last year about people pestering him about the lack of proven options at that position. Well, they were right. Pierce does provide the size they were looking for with Keon Coleman, and even Josh Palmer to a lesser degree, who I still expect to have a significant role when healthy, but this guy has legit deep speed on go routes and to threaten post safeties. He'd immediately open up more space underneath for Khalil Shakir and force defenses into more too high structures for them to run the ball against. I expect him to be north of $20 million on like a 3+1 sort of deal after probably restructuring a few of the bigger contracts, and the Bills could also be in the A.J. Brown market. The team that has continuously stopped the Bills in the playoffs, the Kansas City Chiefs, at a negative $18.5 million effective cap space, and that was after just restructuring Patrick Mahomes' contract earlier this week, lowering his cap hit from over $78 million to about $34.5 million. That'll be necessary to make up the gap we saw for most of last season, when they were right in the thick of things but couldn't quite finish a lot of the games, as their great record in one-possession affairs got totally flipped on its head. They need to finally find a running back that combines vision with the explosive traits in one body, to where you can have a run game that really has to be respected, and the real pass rush off the edge if they want to rise to AFC supremacy once again. Plus they have a couple of pending free agents from the starting secondary, but I want to have some fun here with this one and talk about a player I connected them with in the past, lifetime Buck Mike Evans. The Chiefs have toyed around with the idea of these veteran receivers, giving them a boost before, such as Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins, and even Juju Smith-Schuster in his second stint. Evans finally saw his impressive 1,000-yard streak ended after 11 straight seasons to start his career, and we'll see if injuries become a more prevalent part to this chapter, but he still has the most to offer of any of these guys they've brought in recently. Mahomes has never quite had that big, ball-winning type of receiver on the outside, who can also operate as a power slot, at least to this caliber. And unless they reconnect with Tyreek Hill, you may not have to pay over $50 million for Big Mike's services for a year, looking to get back to the Super Bowl. Final two teams here, the Dallas Cowboys, negative $37.5 million, who clearly have some in-house things to take care of before they really worry about anything else, including restructuring Dak Prescott's contract, which currently entails a $74 million cap hit for this year, and I'm sure Jerry Jones will find ways to be a big part of the news cycle again this offseason. The most likely outcome for me is that they tag George Pickens and re-sign Javonte Williams on another short-term deal, coming off a resurrective season in Dallas. Defense has to be the priority here, after they finished dead last in both DVOA and EP per play last year, following the trade of Micah Parsons. Even if making a move for Quinnen Williams at the deadline limits the draft capital to some degree, that's still the avenue primarily for them to get back to competence. I think the Cowboys are very much in the linebacker market. If someone like a Sonny Styles from Ohio State were available at pick 12 in the first round, the Marvin Overshown has been promising when available, but there are no consequences if they cut Logan Wilson this offseason, who didn't show enough to justify paying what's left on his contract, and you certainly don't want to lock yourself into off-ball linebacker with one of your 2 first-round picks. Devin Lloyd is a name that kind of feels right in Jerry world. Building off a breakout season in Jacksonville, where they now regret not having picked up a 50-year option to bring his playmaking skills to a unit that really needs it. I'm sure new defensive coordinator Christian Parker will appreciate another long hybrid backer in the mold of what he was working with in Philly in Zach Bond and Jahar Campbell. You're probably looking at right around $20 million per year on a long-term deal. Which brings us to team number 32, the Minnesota Vikings, at a whopping negative $48 million effective cap space, who basically have 9 players on the books at $19.5 million or more against the cap this year, and they may be looking to move a few of those. Even for the strongest believers in JJ McCarthy, the gamble of moving on from Sam Darnold in favor of a guy with 0 regular season snaps due to torn meniscus, although that was the plan all along, did not pay off, considering they barely somehow made it to 9-8 while Sam hoisted the Lombardi Trophy with the Seahawks. The main point for them with that move was the available cash that created for them, and the veterans they chose to bring in to bolster both sides of the line of scrimmage just did not make that meaningful a difference, even if injuries were a factor. I'm not ruling out them reuniting with Kirk Cousins, but I don't see them being in the running for the one big fish in the open market that could be Malik Willis from the rivals in the Packers. Instead, I'll focus on the biggest name leaving the building in-house and long-term stalwart safety Harrison Smith retiring. There's just no way they can replace his leadership and presence on the back end, but a name that would fit here is the chief of his rookie contract in Brian Cook. As someone who has started all 46 games he's been available for since his second season, as a former second-round pick for Spags, he's clearly showcased the ability to line up pretty much anywhere on the field and handle all these crazy coverage rotations that Brian Florence likes to draw up. He has almost no experience as a blitzer, but he can fit the run from depth, manages space very well on the back end, and has become a highly dependable tackler. 4 years, $50 to $55 million is what I project. And that concludes my version of a free agency preview, matching all 32 teams with one player I thought made sense for them. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, just click the thumbs up button for me real quick. You can subscribe for more off-season content all the way to the kickoff of 2026, and feel free to put your ideas in the comment section. Who do you want your favorite team to sign? Did you connect the dots with any of these? Happy to read those and give my opinion. I'll be back in about a week and a half, I'd say, once the NFL Combine is concluded and it's time to outline some winners and losers. And that really puts us in full-on draft mode, where I'll have a couple of positional rankings coming out every single week with scouting reports all over at hellosforfootballtalk.com. The next video after that will be sandwiched in the middle of that, where I talk about some of my guys in this process, and then we finish up with my overall big board and final mock draft. Also, make sure to follow me on social media if you want some early versions I throw out there, when I think about stuff happening around the sport altogether. Links for all of that are down below in the description. Looking forward to maybe interacting with some of you guys, and thanks for any and all support. So until then, see you later. Peace!